person, but he has a message. Nobody likes you. Maybe for you, but it's not for me. I've had it out to the parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
Several times.
He doesn't know record crowd. For non-marijuana.
Yes. Oh, mine wasn't marijuana either. Mine was sewer issues. Oh, it was worse than marijuana. I'm not kidding. They were out in the parking lot. That place was packed.
Nothing worse when there's poop floating around in your neighborhood.
You guys ready?
Ready?
Mr. Folsom? You ready? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. Thank you for, it's always nice to see such a large crowd and seeing all of our staff here also with us. So thank you very much for everybody who's here tonight. Today is November 8th, and this is the regular meeting of the City of Clearlake. Love it. Madam Clerk, if we could please get a roll call.
Councilmember Overton?
Here.
Councilmember Kramer?
Here.
Councilmember Bennett?
Here.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Here.
Mayor Sabatier?
Here. Councilmember Kramer, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have Mr. Hinkle, I believe it's Todd Hinkle. Yes, Todd Hinkle for invocation. If you could please step to the podium. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And thank you for all of you who serve here in Clearlake. I just want to open in prayer. Thank you, Lord. I pray you would bless this meeting. I pray you would grant all of us wisdom concerning all these issues that we're going to look at tonight. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. And if we can all stand for a moment of silence, we unfortunately have had a couple bad incidents happen in our state this last 24 hours. We all know the unfortunacies of when innocent lives are affected by those who are not in control of their actions, and we also know what the situation is when our brothers and sisters are fighting against fires. So if we could please have a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Folsom, are there any changes to, I believe there are some changes to the agenda.
As a matter of fact, there happens to be one, Mr. Mayor. I would like to remove item number 11 from the consent calendar and move that to a business item.
Would you like that to be the first business item that we speak of?
That would be wonderful, thank you.
Perfect, perfect. I'm glad that works out that way. Can I get a motion to approve the changes to the agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're going to move on. Mr. Jones, any announcements from our closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there was. So the council voted to reject a claim from Michael Pangelina that was made against the city of Clearlake. The motion was
motion from Vice Mayor Harris, second from Councilmember Overton, and the vote was 5-0, and that's my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Our first presentation will be from Chief White for the swearing in of new police officer and police dispatcher.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, and family members that are here today. I have the honor to introduce to you two of our newest employees, Taylor Mackey, who is our new dispatcher, and then we also have Britannia Shores, who you probably know as CSO Shores, who is going to be promoted tonight to Officer Shores. Taylor Mackey was born in Santa Rosa and grew up in Middletown. She graduated from Middletown High School and was active in softball, soccer, baseball, volleyball, and cheerleading. Did I miss anything? Okay. After high school, she took college courses and worked several jobs, including in a restaurant, as an instructional aide, and as a medical assistant. She became interested in the career field of dispatching and did several sit-alongs with the Clearlake Police Department. We're excited to have Taylor join our dispatch team. Officer Shores was born and raised in beautiful Clearlake, California. She is the youngest of 3 children and was raised by her mother, who she described as a very strong and loving single mother. Early on, Shores set out her goal of becoming a law enforcement officer. Although unsuccessful in her first attempt at the academy, she was undeterred, which is a characteristic that we look for in police officers, and attended the basic academy at the Santa Rosa Junior College Public Safety Training Center. She was hired as a community services officer with the Clearlake Police Department in 2017. During her time as CSO, she has built relationships with different businesses, including some who she described as holding a special place in her heart, and I believe there's many that are joining her here today. Ms. Shores is a valuable member of this organization, and we look forward to seeing her serve in her new capacity as police officer. After we read the oath of office, her mother will be pinning her badge. All right, so if you could turn around and we'll face the audience here. If you could raise your right hand. Yes, both of you at the same time. The right part here is after I say I, you're going to say your name. Okay. So I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Right? Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations. Not easy being in front of this big crowd, so they did well.
Chance to hurt her before she carries her gun.
This is always the fun part.
It is, isn't it? Oh, gosh. There we go. Got it.
Awesome. I think persistence runs deep in this family. All right. Did you want to say any words? Okay, you? All right. You guys, thank you.
Welcome to the team.
Andrew is. Alan coming up for this?
So our second presentation is our staff appreciation, certificates of appreciation for our staff. We make decisions up on here, but the actions that happen in our city and where we see things change is done by the staff, and that's our team. And today we want to celebrate our team and make sure that they feel the appreciation and the acknowledgement for what it is that they do every single day, day in and day out. There's been many times in our community where we've asked for them to go above and beyond, and those times are when we have to deal with our fire evacuations, when we have to deal with fires in our own backyards. Our staff stands tall against all odds to be able to make it happen for our community, and we can't be thankful enough for what it is that they do for all of us. So we're going to start out with our, I believe, 5-year, which would be first, Renee Crabendam. County Clerk. Didn't want to mess up the last name. We'll do a speech one at a time afterwards. Trevor Franklin.
You've been here 5 years?
Congratulations.
Are we already to 15?
Yep.
Okay. So then we have our 15 years of dedication to service, which is many years of service to our community. We can't be thankful enough for this. Timothy Hobbs, police.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Our 20-year service award, Wendy England.
The rest are howling.
So if we can please get a large round of applause. This is all the way to 20 years of service. Offer 20 years of service, of public service, is an absolute dedication and loyalty to the people that we serve. Thank you so much for your service to our community. We are very thankful for your service.
I want to say something. One of the challenges when I came onto this department that many of you are aware about is recruitment and retention. Those are our top 2 priorities right now within the department. And I think that this service right here is a testament to those who have stuck through it. These individuals have been through very, very difficult times in this city, and I think that they should be up on kind of a pillar within the department for all the new people hiring to show what it means to be dedicated to an agency that gives you a chance, gives you an opportunity. And we have all their coworkers that are back here. These are the individuals that, I come here to these meetings and hear all the accolades about the department, but these are the individuals both here and back there that they're actually doing the work day in and day out. So I just want to give my hats off to you guys, to these individuals out here, and thank you for all the work that you do, and that we all think about your safety all the time. So.
So the next one, our next presentation, will be a proclamation declaring November 2018 as Native American Month. And I think that, I love the fact that we've really started to use these proclamations to really remember our past history and where we've come from here in Lake County. We have some of the oldest history of Native heritage right here. Anderson Marsh has history dating back all the way to 15,000, 17,000 years ago, and then some. It is one of the hottest artifact areas of sacred artifacts and sacred sites that we have in our country, and we are very proud to have that in our community and to be a part of our community. Native American Heritage Month, November 2018. Whereas, as the first Americans, Native Americans have helped shape the future of the United States through every turn of our history. Whereas, the contributions of Native Americans have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today. Whereas, their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States. Whereas, Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designated the month of November as National Native American Heritage Month. And whereas, in honor National Native American Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities are planned. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the City of Clear Lake does hereby designate November 2018 as Native American Heritage Month and urge all our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, dated this 8th day of November 2018 from the City of Clear Lake. And I'm going to pass this on to our City Manager, Greg Folsom, who is of the Choctaw, I'm so sorry, of the Choctaw tribe. He's a descendant of the Choctaw tribe, so we're proud to have him here to receive this proclamation.
No, thank you. Real briefly, I'm actually not a descendant of the Choctaw tribe. I am a member of the Choctaw tribe. So
both.
I'm, I think, one of the few city managers in the state of California that actually is a tribal member, so I'm very proud of that fact. This county is very unusual because there's some Native American leadership here. Here in the city of Clear Lake, I'm obviously part of the leadership, but at the county level, you've got 2 supervisors who are also Native Americans. So this is very unusual, and something that I'm very proud of. Thank you.
Very proud of. Thank you very much. Presentation first. There will be a PowerPoint presentation for you. And actually, I made a mistake, and if we could just take a brief 3-minute, 4-minute break, so we have people here who have worked all day and who would probably like to go home to their families, or people who are working right now who would probably like to go to work rather than sit here and watch us. So if we could just have a 3-minute break, so we can settle that. Taylor.
He started hot. Can you grab short? I should have said not just. Oh, right there.
I just turned it down. I just turned it down.
Did you use your phone to do it?
Trying to see what happens if I go no shade no filter. It might not work. Might be a little too I know you did. Mine is.
Yeah. Good. How was it? It was so hard to tell. Thank you. Yeah, she came to work for us for a year or so. Okay. Bye. Love you. I have to go. I have to go. Kathy said just want to say hi. But anyway, so it's like, yeah. Always take off
I know, it'll probably have more like a minute.
I just want to see if they've already like turned on the building.
Yeah, I turned down to 70.
I mean, you get an X-ray.
They all have coach shoulders. Yeah, other people complain because it's cold. I turned it to 70.
I'm going after the alley. Yeah, I'm gonna dress like I'm gonna wear the skinny and the Italian shoes. You can. And I'm gonna have, you know.
I need the bios.
I already did Mallory.
Do you have it in Word? Yeah, if you can do that.
Well, for me, I haven't had my hair this long.
Next week we sign for 2 years.
Even when I was a narc, I couldn't grow it out.
Then
you got Russian.
See you later.
They're right there. I'm just making it.
I have a couple appointments, but I put it in, started at 8. I blocked 8 to 11.
Used because they're like exactly what your vision was, and
I just sent you some of the pictures so that you can upload them to Facebook.
doesn't like that.
Show on the road.
Oh, okay.
Been a long day.
See you then.
What'd you do, get up?
Went to judge's breakfast.
Oh, yeah, that's right, today's Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working.
No.
I'm just getting off of work.
We'll be back in session now. Thank you very much, Melissa Swanson.
Why is he over there now?
Oh, do we only have one projector going, or? Yes. Never mind.
All right, Honorable Mayor and council members, as you know, we had our annual city Halloween on October 31st. So I have some pictures to present from the party. The committee setting up the city Halloween was Tina Viramontes, Nikki Burrell, and Vicki Leonard. This year's theme was superheroes, Again, this is a 100% donation-funded event. We also had teal pumpkins with small toys and pencils for children with allergies. We've had that for 3 years now. The Clearlake Police Department pays for our reflective trick-or-treat bags that we give out with asset forfeiture funds. We gave out 21 pepperoni and cheese pizzas, which were donated by Cecil's Pizza. That equals 336 slices, of which I think the city manager ate probably about a third of those.
Oh, beep, beep, beep.
And in the end, we gave out 343 bags of candy and goodies in 3 hours. We were here from 2 to 5. So our city Halloween donors were many this year. As you can see, we had Cecil's Pizza, Grocery Outlet, the Chamber of Commerce, Chuck and Vicki Leonard, Clearlake Auto, Joan Moore, Sue Bermudez and Susan Goodnow, the Park Study Club, Karen and Dale Valentine, Joanne Cox, my mama, and lots of PD staff. So we have certificates for all of those people when I'm done showing the pictures off. So again, our theme was, who's your superhero? And Alan's is Greg.
Put those together.
Wow. Can I tell the story on that one with the visit office?
We had a huge turnout this year, more than I think in any other year. The last time we had such a big turnout was when it rained, and this year it was perfectly sunny. So we have lots of little ones. This one was pretty awesome. Lots of pizza given out.
That one was good. I like that.
So those are pictures from this year.
First, again, I want to thank our staff for putting all this together. Every year we bring the youth and families to our city hall to be able to celebrate a holiday that, of course, our children love. They get to go to houses and knock on doors, come to city hall and other businesses and pick up candy and get to meet and greet the people in their community. And I think that's an amazing way to make that happen. I want to make sure and hand these out to those that are in the audience right now. So if we can please have Ryan Peterson. I'm going to say your last name wrong. Jan Brejska? Perfect. All right. Steve Felder? Karen and Dale Valentine? I know there's a representative of the Park Study Club here. Vicki and Chuck Leonard.
That's you, Greg.
I guess I could be.
Yeah, John, get up there.
You were hiding behind the camera.
Yeah, you were, man.
Did I miss anybody from the list of donors? John, we're not done yet. So every year that we have to put this together, this is like other events that we do in our community, like the Christmas parade that's coming up soon. We get so much from our community to make these activities happen. It proves that we're strong, it proves that we're thriving, it proves that we want to continue building our community. And so those of you that are standing up here with me, thank you so much for your donations. Thank you so much for your participation. My biggest gratitude for all of your participation, and thank you so much.
If anybody would like to please speak, you can come up, or else we're here for pictures, and I think they deserve a round of applause as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Sorry, I almost forgot. And if you could please give these to, there's many other employees in here as well. And
Okay.
whoever else that we can give it to. Next, I believe we have a presentation of the new Animal Control Department kennel tracking software. Chief White. Or is that Mr. Flora?
Oh, it'll be me. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Sergeant Snyder, I think, is going to come up here. Are you going to come up?
No, I was just trying to see the screen.
Okay. All right. So as you all know, we have been focusing on the animal control and animal shelter operation. One of the needs that was identified actually prior to my arrival that Sergeant Snyder had worked on was identifying software that could help us work more efficiently. As you know, we rely heavily upon volunteers to help operate the shelter, and we have a very bare bones staffing. So they decided that getting a system could help make us more efficient and also to improve our level of service to the community. At the same time, during this process, when I came on board, we identified a need to streamline our animal licensing. As you know, animal licensing is important to promote animals being vaccinated for rabies and also to enforcement of the spay and neuter law. So we are pleased to announce that effective tonight, our system is now online. So there are actually two components to this system. One is a shelter management system, which our employees use on a daily basis, and I'm not going to demonstrate tonight, but suffice to say it handles the entire process as far as record keeping, doing reports, checking the number of animals that are in the shelter, and it also works with our animal control officers. They can access it in the field, which is important so that they don't have to come back and forth to the station. So for the public side, the way to access it is on our website. If you go to the police department section and go to animal control, there are two new links, which are kind of hard to see up here, but it says online dog licensing and then found and adoptable pets. I will sneak preview that we are redoing the police department website. And in the new website, it's a little bit more friendly to get around. And you go down to the bottom of that, and there'll actually be license your dog. So very easy to get to. Once you go onto that page, it takes you to the Shelter Pro portal, which is fairly basic, but allows us to access the important items. One of them being the online licensing. So for citizens to license their animals, they can just go online 24 hours a day. They set up an account on here, and then they can enter in their animals and pay all their fees online. We also have added down at the shelter where we will, beginning next week, we'll be able to accept payments through credit cards, so they don't have to shuttle back and forth between the facility and here to either adopt a pet or to redeem a pet. The adoptable pets list, you can see in here, we can see animals that are lost and found. They can immediately show up. So if we pick on this dog Bam Bam right here, we can learn more about the dog, and it'll actually come up and give us all the information about the dog. We can also go through and find pets that are adoptable. So inside here, the pets that have passed the redemption time, and now they're up for adoption. So you see all the different pictures. This system is also going to be linked in with Pet Data, which is a larger system. That is right. It's Pet Data, Sergeant say? Pet Finder, I'm sorry. Pet Finder, so people will be able to access it on there and see the information. We also have just started microchipping the animals. So when we have animals that leave our facility, we're administering the microchips, and we have our system is actually linked to the microchip registry, so that if an animal is found, our officers have the microchip scanners, and any animals that come into the shelter also scan, so we can hopefully reunite them back to the owner. So it's very exciting. We're excited to see how this will help us to better serve the community. And I'd also like to thank all the staff that's helped make this happen, and Sergeant Snyder for taking the lead on initiating this project. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And I just want to reiterate what was just said as well. I know that Sergeant Snyder's been working on getting a new software up and going for a little while, and I think this is also proof of our Animal Control Ad Hoc Committee that we put together to make sure and focus on the needs of animal control and the community. And we're seeing a lot of things happening, and this is a great step. So thank you so much to the Animal Control team. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much for that presentation. We're going to move on to public comment, I believe. Yes, and I have one in front of me, and I believe the name is Drenda Henson. If you're still here, please come to the podium. We are not allowed to discuss what you bring to us. We will listen to you, and I already read through it. It's definitely not on our agenda, but we cannot discuss it if it's on the agenda, nor can we discuss it with you back
My
and forth.
dearest friend was down with the flu and he couldn't come with me, so I brought my oldest friend for moral support. Mr. Fellner red tagged my house about a year ago, and he had to lift it because I cleaned it. It was spotless. But since that time, he has visited my house at least 5 or 6 times and threatened to red tag it again. About 3 days ago, he came up and he said he was going to get a judge to get a warrant out, to be able to come into my house. How long does this man have to threaten me? How many times can he threaten to get me run out of my house and threaten to come in my house when there's been no complaints about my house? As far as I know, he's never mentioned them. He said he'd give me 30 days, but last month I injured my leg. I have a very bad knee. It's inoperable. And I could not get to my mailbox. And my neighbors brought me my mail about a week before the first and after. He said he left a posting on my mailbox. They never saw it. I never saw it. I never got a letter from him. He said he mailed one, but I never got one. How long can he threaten? Because I cannot live out on the street in the cold of this winter. How long does he have? How many times can he do this to me? Do I have to live, either just get up and move, or he's going to be doing this every month or so? I don't understand this. I talked to the Attorney General's office in California, in Sacramento, and they said they'd be very interested in hearing what I have to say, because Clearlake's been coming up a lot in their dealings with the people, and they wanted to make an appointment last time he did this. They said it sounded like he was harassing me and that they were stepping on my civil rights. Now, do I have to go to Sacramento to get some satisfaction? I cannot live under this pressure of being threatened with homelessness in the middle of the winter. This is not a thing I can do. I'm a nervous wreck all the time. I don't even want to answer my door anymore because I'm afraid he's going to knock on the door and threaten me again. What am I supposed to do? How long does he have? How can he keep doing this over and over again? He's already been in my house and inspected twice, and the last time he had to lift the red tag because it was spotless. I got sick and I got a little bit behind in my house. He said he could smell my house from upstairs. I have some garbage under my porch that has to be dumped. I know that. And I have plans to do that this month, but my friend that is doing this for me got very ill and he had an enlarged aorta. And I'm going to have to hire somebody to get all the stuff out. Also, I have feral cats around and they've been using my front yard for a cat box. I've already figured out how to get that problem solved. I will rake up all this stuff and put plastic on it, and they can't get there and use it anymore as a litter box. And I think he must have been smelling that because my house had just been bleached and put vinegar all through it. And my friend even said she can hardly breathe because I put so much bleach on everything. I don't see how he could smell anything with my doors closed and my windows closed.
And ma'am?
And say that it was awful.
Your 3 minutes are up. If you'd like to wait till after the meeting, maybe we can discuss it
Okay,
further
thank you.
one-on-one, or at this point, your 3 minutes are up and public comment
Okay,
is
thank
over.
you very much.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak, to make a public comment on an agenda item or on an item that is not on our agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda, which has number 11 pulled out. Any council member wish to pull an item out of the consent agenda to discuss further? Anybody from the public wish to pull a consent agenda item to discuss further? Bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda, excluding item 11.
Second that.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Councilmember Kramer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And now we will start out with item number 11, approve entering into
Actually, we'll do the public hearing first, and then we'll go to business.
Oh, so, sorry. Item number 13 is not business, so we will start with that one, public hearing. Public hearing to consider second reading and adoption of amendment to Clearlake Municipal Code, Section 9-1.4, ordinance number 215-2018. Mr. Folsom.
Actually, I'm going to handle that, Mr. Mayor. This is the one I discussed last meeting on the first reading. This is regarding our adoption of other state codes that we think gives our code enforcement and building inspectors more tools when it comes to inspecting and enforcing our municipal code. Along with Chief White, he and I have drafted this. We feel comfortable with it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I think it's a fairly straightforward ordinance, and that's my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the public? And seeing none, I'll bring it back for potential action or further deliberation.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hold second reading ordinance 215-2018, but read by title only, waive further reading, and adopt the ordinance. An ordinance repealing sections 9-1.5 through 9-1.16 of Chapter 9 of the Clearlake Municipal Code and amending section 9.1.4 of Chapter 9 of Clearlake Municipal Code, adopting the 2016 California Building Standards Code, 2018 Uniform Swimming Pool, Spa, and Hot Tub Code, 2018 International Existing Building Code, 2018 International Fire Code, 2018 Uniform Solar, Hydronics, and Geothermal Code, 2018 International Fire Code, 2018 Uniform Solar, Hydronics, and Geothermal Code, 1997.
That's the typo that would need to be fixed from last time. It's still there, but you can
want to make sure we're on the same page. Like there was no differentiation there. 1997 Uniform Housing Code and 1997 Uniform Code for the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings by Reference. It was a mouthful.
And we can administratively modify the errors that were in that.
Thank you for administratively modifying.
I'll second that.
And we all appreciate the motion there, Vice Mayor. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Councilmember Kramer. Madam Clerk, if we can have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Overton? Aye. Councilmember Bennett?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Sabatier?
Aye. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Moving on to item number 11 under business. Approve entering into contract with AT&T for fiber optic internet service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce our IT director, the police chief, Andrew White.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. We asked to pull this item because there were some changes after we did the agenda. So I'll give some background on it and then explain what the change in staff recommendation is. The city currently contracts with Mediacom for internet connectivity, which serves the police department and city hall. We have two different connections, and essentially we use what I would call like consumer grade internet. So we have a cable line that comes into the building and splits off to both sides. We end up having to pay two different bills. There's no economy of scale with it. It's also unreliable during power outages. So most recently we had the public safety power outage, and although power was actually on in the area, there was an upstream link that basically caused it to go down. Fiber optic internet gives us a guaranteed class of service. It is survivable during power outage events. It's considered commercial class service. It's something that the hospitals have in the area, the city of Lakeport has, and the county also has. As you know, we've been moving to cloud-based platforms, and one of the benefits of cloud-based platforms is you're able to do a lot more with less IT staffing. The necessary part to make that all work, though, is that you have a reliable internet connection. So in researching, we found that there were two providers for fiber optic internet, one being Mediacom, one being AT&T. AT&T originally came in with the low bid. However, in subsequent conversations with Mediacom, they were able to come in with an even lower price of $800 per month. You'll note in the staff report, we presented a 3-year agreement, and essentially the differential between the new lowest quoted price from Mediacom compared to AT&T across the 3 years would be a savings of $2,460.60. Both of the prices quoted by Mediacom and also quoted by AT&T are lower than the state contracted cost that was competitively bid for fiber optic internet, so we think we're getting a good deal in both cases. The change is that based upon Mediacom coming in at the lower quoted price, that we would recommend council instead adopt a resolution allowing the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with Mediacom, with Mediacom providing the lowest price. We do have a waiver in there for the formal bidding process because there are only 2 direct providers in this case, so we'd still ask that we waive those formal bidding requirements. We are also asking that there's room for the city manager across the 3 years to make adjustments to the contract, namely that if we need more speed throughout the term of the contract, that as long as it is within the spending authority, that the city manager would be allowed to do so. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Overton, you're... Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Any questions from the council? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody wish to ask any questions?
That sounds like really fantastic news. Chief White, what's the throughput on the fiber you're looking at?
So the contract term that we have is 100 megabits up and down. So it's what's called a symmetric speed.
Is it asymmetric? So is that guaranteed?
No, this one's symmetric. It's same up and down.
Oh, pardon me. Yes.
Yeah, same up and down. And yes, it is guaranteed. To get really technical, the peering occurs with Level 3, which is a major fiber provider across the U.S. So we have guaranteed from our point of connection here all the way to the peering with Level 3. So there's no aggregation that occurs along the way. And that was one of the points that I didn't mention it, but the city manager, assistant city manager, and I had a lengthy discussion with Mediacom when this came up to ensure that it would meet our needs and that we're not combining anywhere along the line.
So 100 bilateral, and what's your current speed?
So the current speed for police department is rated as, I believe it's 300 down and like 20 up, but it's up to those speeds, and we do not see those speeds. This city hall is much lower.
What are you really experiencing?
It varies. Some days it's hour by hour, minute by minute. I think that people are well aware of the challenges with internet here being a remote community. So it varies throughout the day. It's not a reliable speed.
Congratulations.
Well, not yet. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, I'll bring it back to council. Vice Mayor Harris.
No, I'm not seeing this. I'm not seeing the information on it, but is there an initial cost to us to bring the fiber optic in?
So there was, and we negotiated it away. So there will be zero cost to do the install. The term of the contract is 3 years, and that was also the reason why the Mediacom quote was initially higher, because they were trying to cost share equipment costs on their side with us, which we told them that we were not going to do. And so they came back with a lower price.
And just out of pure ignorance, where does the fiber optic currently reside, and where do we have to pull it from?
That's an interesting question. So apparently it's behind our building, up on the poles. It's relatively close in both cases. They're coming out to identify it either tomorrow or next week exactly where it's at, but it's actually relatively close to here.
Fantastic. And that's going to be at this facility, and that'll supply obviously the police department and next door, the city hall, but that's no other city facilities.
So one of the terms that we've worked in here is that in the future, if we wanted to offer some sort of Wi-Fi at the parks, for example, we would be able to leverage this connection to do that.
Got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? I was curious, and actually I think the answer is just obviously yes, but this will be very helpful also for our body cams that get uploaded into the cloud every single day, I believe, because now with the upload speed that's intensified, that's going to make that a much faster process, so I appreciate that as well. Are we ready for action or further questions? Vice Mayor Harris.
Well, my cohort here just brought up a good point. The total amount that we show here per year is the 10,421. What did our Mediacom cost end up coming to?
It's $800 per month. So the $800
a year.
Okay, perfect. Just for proper records. Thank you.
And then for when during our motion, do we say to bypass the formal bidding as well? Okay.
So
just wanted to make sure.
Explain that you're gonna talk about the dollar amount, who you're awarding the contract to. You're gonna waive the formal bidding, and I think in the motion include the flexibility for the city manager to make adjustments as needed, or language to that effect.
think we're all looking at the vice mayor to make that happen.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-52 and authorize the city manager to enter into a 3-year contract with Mediacom for fiber optic fiber optic internet service. And then we want to bypass the bidding, the formal bidding process, and authorize the city manager for further negotiations in the future.
That's fine. The only thing is that resolution that's in there needs to be modified based on this. So we're going to make the modifications to the resolution to reflect
what I just said.
Correct.
Copy that.
Because the one that's in the packet showed.
Do you feel I said it? Do you feel I said it clearly enough?
I do, Chief.
Yes, and I redlined it here. Basically, if you replace each spot that it says AT&T with Mediacom, then the resolution stands correct and addresses the waiver of bidding, et cetera.
Okay, so
and I'd be happy to give you a copy.
Shall I just read the resolution?
I don't think you need to read it. If you could just reflect that where it says AT&T, it should read Mediacom.
All right.
As stated. All right. So we have a motion by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Councilmember Kramer. Can I please get a roll call? Or actually, we can all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. Thank you very much for that, Chief White. Moving on to item number 4.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Was there a no to that? I didn't.
No, there was
Someone
no.
said negative. I heard the word negative.
Vice Mayor Harris was going for comedy a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
I believe he said aye.
I did.
A negative to the negative, which is a positive.
I just responded. Now I'm realizing I did respond to that. Was there any objection negative? Sorry about that.
But thank you for double checking on that. Item number 14, discussion on community development block grant application. Mr. Folsom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there currently is what's called a NOFA, a Notice of Funding Available, through the U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development, Community Development Block Grant Program. We held a hearing on September 18th, which allowed residents and organizations to comment on what type of eligible projects the city should apply for. We're going to have to go through a second public hearing, most likely in January. The city is currently operating a 2017 contract and is only eligible to apply for one shovel-ready project. The project can be public improvements or public facility, but the total funding cannot exceed $3 million. Again, the application needs to be for a shovel-ready project. If awarded, the project will need to be in construction within 12 months of contract award by CDBG. Due to the waiver process being used, the city would be eligible to apply for one activity and project listed above for a maximum application amount of $3 million. And what we talked about in the public hearing was potential projects of the Austin Park rehabilitation, the Highlands Park rehabilitation, the Highlands Park Frontage Improvement Project, and a pedestrian pathway project. Staff's recommendation is that we look at potentially combining the Highlands Park Rehabilitation Project and the Highlands Park Frontage Improvement Project as our application. But that's kind of what we're here to discuss at this point. The applications are due in January, and we'll probably get notified somewhere in the late spring, early summer. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Folsom. Vice Mayor Harris?
Well, I think that we've all pretty much concluded that we want to focus our attention on Highlands Park area, so I think that sounds pretty solid to me as a concept. And if we were to be able to acquire such funding, what would be our time frame for moving forward with it?
It would probably be, I'm just going to guess, a late summer type of thing, because once they make the award, then they have to go through, you have to do a contract with them. We would then have to bid it out. We're going to have the construction documents ready in the December timeframe. Okay, so that'll be all ready to go. It'll just be actually executing, assuming we're awarded, it would be then executing the contract with CDBG and then doing a bid process and awarding the contract for construction.
And then concerning the focusing this funding on the Highlands Park area, we still have some position in the hopper as far as Austin's Park, and it wouldn't have any effect on that.
Right.
And that time frame on that is to any progress at all? Do we have any idea?
The construction documents are on the same timeline. We should be finished with construction documents here December, January. As soon as that's out, assuming that we decide to go forward, well, we kind of need to know if we get the award. If we get the award, we potentially have more money available to do more at Austin Park.
Okay.
So once we know what's happening there, we'll go forward and put out the bid.
So the majority of our effort on Highlands Park to accomplish the two things we're talking about, and any overflow funding we could, okay, that's what I was, thank you so much.
Councilmember Kramer?
Yeah, I actually have not had yet made my mind up as far as between Austin's and Highlands Park. How much do we need for Austin's Park? What's the total cost there?
We don't have the engineer's estimate done at this point. It really depends on what's involved. I believe it was over $2 million if you included the pier, but if you don't include the pier, then it's substantially less than that, but it's still over $1 million. There's other efforts afoot to try and raise money for Austin Park.
And how much, again, is the two items of the Highlands Park, the two components of it?
Again, roughly about over $1 million. I don't have the engineer's estimate, but it's over $1 million for Highlands Park, and the road was potentially $500,000.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
So, I guess to me, Austin's Park has been our kind of the key thing to our city to be able to bring concerts and other things into it. And it would seem to me that, in my mind, I'm struggling with this. Why not do Austin's Park now?
So we've allocated $375,000 from Series A bonds to the road frontage. We've allocated $500,000 for Highlands Park. We've allocated $500,000 for Austin Park. If we're successful in getting the CDBG grant, that could potentially replace all or most of that money. So we'd have approximately $750,000 that could go from Highlands Park into Austin Park. If we go forward with Austin Park, we've got approximately $350,000 left to improve Austin Park, and half of that has to go towards our waterfront interpretive plan. So we don't have as much that we can move over to Highlands Park.
Again, Austin's, to me, seems to be should be our focal point to our city. I understand Highlands Park is important as well, but I guess I'm feeling that Austin's is the one that we should be focusing on to finish, or at least to get further down the line.
The other reason to go for Highlands Park is that they look at when they score these projects, they're looking to see the impact. Highlands Park has a greater, Highlands Park is kind of looked at as a neighborhood park, whereas Austin Park is a regional park, okay? So when you look at it on a regional basis, you look at a larger area for CDBG, and the low mod numbers are not as negative as they are when you look at Highlands Park. So when you look at just Highlands Park, the surrounding community there has a greater amount of poverty than when you look at a larger area around Austin Park. So we have a higher possibility.
So you believe that the chances for successfully getting the block land are better?
Yeah, the person we're working with to put our grant together believes that we have a higher potential with Highlands Park.
That's it. Councilmember Overton.
Yeah, I think first off is I don't think people realize. I don't think people realize that the Highlands Park actually has been, for past council, was one of our agenda items before Austin's Park when we started with that. With Austin was just to move the playground was kind of a thing, but there's been a design on Highlands Park for quite some time now over the years. So I think it is something that we need to move forward with. And there are potential other fundings coming, hopefully, for Austin's Park that might help us out. Also, other organizations that are wanting to help Clear Lake fix their parks up. So I definitely agree that we need to get the Highlands done. And hopefully there is some money left over that we can move over to Austin and get that done. And hopefully some of these organizations will come up, and when this all happens, it will be a really good thing for everybody. So.
Councilmember Bennett.
Also, Highlands Park is just sitting there right now. We haven't done anything on it. It's just sitting there. I know we have plans to change the roadway, the parking. We have purchased parking across the street and all, but we haven't begun movement on Highland Park yet. And this will allow us to do that, and still with money left over to address Austin Park, which we already have begun doing. So I'm in favor of this.
So I'm not going to disagree that the financial part of it is definitely more beneficial if we hit Highlands Park up, but I do like the point that Councilmember Kramer brings up about Austin Park being the central location of our city. It's where the majority, if you go out on the weekends, you'll see a lot more families enjoying themselves in Austin Park than they are enjoying themselves in Highlands Park. It's a bigger park. It's a larger area for people to enjoy, a lot of different variety of amenities for families to enjoy. I see a lot of people fishing over at Highlands Park, but I see a lot of families barbecuing, playing with the swing set and things like that over in Austin Park. So I'm really hopeful that we can at least get things started. I'm just going to say that I'd love to see things be greener at the very least in the Austin Park area, based on our engineering drawings, and then get the Highlands Park, hopefully get the grant so we can get that accomplished. But if we can get at least some upgrade going on early for Austin Park, I think we can make a vast difference just by, but when we look at our streets, just adding the striping made it look like a brand new road. If we just get some green grass, even without new amenities in the park, it will look like a brand new park. And so if we can at least take a look at a simple upgrade, because I'm fearing that waiting for the Highlands Park grant and upgrade will also stall again our Austin Park upgrade. So I'm hopeful that we can at least take a look at a minimal patch job before we get to the full upgrade that we're looking to do for Austin Park. And hopefully we can maybe utilize somebody like PSI, like we've had the school Canocti use for Haverty Field. They did a good job of putting new grass in there, and so hopefully we can, but that's not the discussion. I'm in favor of Highlands Park without forgetting Austin Park. I'm going to open it up to the public. Whoever wishes to speak on this item, if you can step up to the podium. Seeing none, I'll bring it back for either further deliberation or action.
I think you're just looking for direction, aren't you?
Oh, you are looking for direction.
I think you got that.
I think we gave it to you. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Exciting. Always nice to talk about our parks. Item number 15, first reading of ordinance to amend Chapter 6-4 of the Clear Lake Municipal Code, sidewalk vendors and door-to-door sales. Mr. Jones or Chief White?
Chief White's going to start with this one.
Yep. Good evening again, Mayor, members of the council, and the public. We're here tonight to talk about the proposed change to the ordinance. By way of background, the governor signed SB 946, which amended the government code, and it pertains specifically to the regulation of what are called sidewalk vendors. This law is going to be effective in January, and the important point to note is that the law contains some language that unless we make a change to our municipal code, we'll be unable to enforce our existing regulations and unable to enforce regulations against sidewalk vendors in general. The city attorney's office and I worked together to review the proposed ordinance changes, and they're before you today. Essentially, this amends the requirements in terms of the application process. It adds operational requirements for the sidewalk vendors consistent with the Senate bill, and it adds an enforcement section which is also required by the Senate bill, which uses the city's administrative citation process exclusively as the remedy. You may recall that I've talked quite a bit about administrative citations, and I think that we're leading the way in which the state is going towards forcing the use of administrative citations for the penalty for many city ordinances. So I think we are a bit ahead of the ball. Unfortunately, with this one, we had to prioritize to do this because if we didn't take action then we couldn't move forward. So that's why we're here tonight with it, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the ordinance.
Councilmember Overton?
Okay, so we're sitting here talking about submitting the fingerprints and photos. I'm assuming a photo ID, or are you going to take a photo? So they have to come and get fingerprints from the police department?
Yes, so it'd be a live scan.
Okay, and do we have that at our?
We send them to a local provider.
So then they'll have to pay for that?
Yeah, they would have to pay for it either way. It's a pass-through fee from the state and then a fee for the operator of the live scan.
And so when we're talking sidewalk vendors, because there's, we're not talking the businesses that can they sell outside, or do they have to get a special permit?
I'm sorry, what's that?
The storefronts that we already have, that's not including them to selling on the sidewalks?
No, this is exclusive to people who use like push cart type equipments or set up their wagon or whatnot on the side of the road. I've only ever seen one that would qualify under this. They operate right across from the PD, and it's the only one I've ever received complaints from the community about their operation.
There's several of them out there. It's just they're not standing on the sidewalk. They're a little more off the sidewalk, but they're still out there. So, okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Would this also apply to the fruit vendors we see in the summertime?
Let the city attorney advise, but I would believe so. I mean, it's pretty specific to people who operate kind of from an itinerant, we used to call it itinerant vendors in the city in the ordinance, so that's what they're tackling.
I think it does. I mean, the definition says someone who sells food or merchandise from a push cart, stand, display, pedal-driven cart, wagon, showcase, rack, or other non-motorized conveyance. To me, that seems to fit within that, unless you're talking about something different.
Back of a pickup bed would.
Yeah, I mean, that's my question really, is that those street vendors that are selling produce and that sort of thing, they would be required then to have a live scan and have some sort of registration before they're able to do such a thing?
Well, they definitely need the
Well, they should be.
environmental health.
I mean, I wouldn't see where there would be any difference in any other food vendor. It's a vendor. It's. So do we need to designate that as something different? I mean, to me, it falls in the.
You mentioned non-motorized, and I was serious with the back of a pickup bed, because that's.
Well, it says right here on, it says right here on 6-4.102D, or sorry, C, if the proposed sales facility is a vehicle or trailer, a copy of the current rate. So I would assume that that means that we're looking at somebody with a push cart or a truck or a trailer or something else that is vending on a sidewalk area.
That's my understanding.
Any further questions or comments? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this item, please come to the podium. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Cheryl Allman, City of Clearlake. I have a couple questions. If we go back to a farmer's market, because I know the chamber is looking at that, would this qualify also, since it's within the park, so to speak, or on that land? I'm just throwing it out there because I know that that is being discussed.
And I know that I was just reading here, and if I could find it, it says unless there's a third party that's renting the park for another purpose, sidewalk vendors may operate in a public park except in circumstances where the city is a third party exclusive agreement for exclusive concessions inside the park, and that would be like if you rent it, and I'll ask Mr. Jones to make sure that that's correct in the way that I'm interpreting it, that if it's, because they would usually go through the permit process with the city to have the park in order to do the
Lions Club, per se. The Lions Club has vendors, so.
I think a farmer's market's a separate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at section M under 105, it specifically says sidewalk vendors may not operate within 200 feet of any city-approved farmer's market. So I think it's contemplating that farmer's markets, swap meets, those kinds of activities would be separately handled.
Differentiated.
Because they're already going through the city and getting licensing and
Right.
proof of insurance, et cetera.
Okay, and how does this, I've got one more question. I know a particular neighborhood that has a restaurant that has sort of popped up. How does that qualify in terms of a sidewalk? I mean, this is a residential neighborhood street, and the neighbors are being told, no, we've got a permit from the city, and it just, without parking or necessarily commercial expectations, I didn't think that sounded right, but I just didn't know if that's considered a sidewalk vendor outside your house.
I don't know that it's a sidewalk vendor, but I think there's other code issues there, and I don't know that that's accurate. They're getting
If you would please
licensing from the city.
Okay.
So please let us know if something like that is
I
happening.
will go back to the neighborhood people who have talked to me and let them know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? And I will bring it back to council for further deliberation or action.
Well, you guys have had taken it away for
Your
so long.
turn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer ordinance number 216-208, an ordinance amending Chapter 6-4 of the Clearlake Municipal Code, regulations, sidewalk vendors, and door-to-door sales activities.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Overton and a second by Councilmember Bennett. If I could please get a roll call.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Bennett?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Sabatier?
Aye. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item number 16, discussion and consideration of agreement with Tyler Technologies for provision of Encode 10 software and related services to upgrade the city's finance, payroll, and purchasing system. Mr. Flora.
Thank you, Mayor Sabatier, members of the council. So, as your council's aware, council included funding in the budget for an upgrade to the system. We've been looking at some possible solutions out there and are bringing forward a recommendation to enter into an agreement with Tyler Technology for that solution. I think the best way to give a brief intro, if you would bear with me, is there's a short video from Tyler that kind of gives an overview of the ERP solution and some of the capabilities, and then I'll fill in some of the gaps at the end.
At Tyler Technologies, our software is designed to integrate local government departments so they can operate as a cohesive and efficient unit, ranging from financial and personnel management to citizen services and utility billing. Tyler's Encode product suite provides more than 1,500 cities, counties, special districts, and other local government departments throughout the country with completely integrated software solutions, and has been doing so for more than 30 years. From metropolitan suburbs to rural communities, Tyler is there. It's been estimated U.S. organizations spend more than $120 billion each year on printed documents. How much paper does your department use each year? With Encode, make your office paperless. Create and send documents like invoices, packing slips, and reports between departments electronically and automatically without having to print a single piece of paper. Deliver electronically via email, PDF, or any format you choose. The days of manually compiling, printing, and distributing reports are gone. Encode allows you to save custom reports and automatically schedule them to deliver electronically. Accurate budgets and forecasting are key tasks for local governments everywhere. With Encode's powerful, yet easy-to-use projection and budget management tools, you won't waste precious time digging and searching for important data. Encode allows you to create accurate personnel and operational budgets without manually entering data. Easily import and export the information you need to and from spreadsheets. And since Encode's flexible functionality adapts to your organization's budget development process, you'll find it incredibly easy to generate the information you need to forecast accurate budgets. Unlike other solutions, Encode doesn't limit your access to your data. Take advantage of unlimited access to any and all of the information you need. Slice, dice, and analyze your data your way. Encode doesn't just export to spreadsheets, it automatically links any data updates you make in your software directly to your workbooks. Encode allows you to get to the data you need and work with it as you see fit. Through powerful filters and search grids, you can narrow the data down to specifics or keep the information as high level as you like. You can create charts, graphics, and manipulate the data exactly how you need to. Encode allows you to automatically upload this information to your organization's website, helping you to become more transparent. You see, citizen engagement is becoming increasingly important. Citizens want to access important data, filter and sort it to their liking. This gives your constituents insight into important decisions and, more importantly, how their tax dollars are being spent. Encode allows local governments to extend their reach to their citizens and, in turn, for citizens to connect in a more meaningful way. For example, they can make routine payments on your website or access important reports and gather data. It's been estimated that searching for information can take up as much as 20% of an employee's day. That's why Encode tailors the user experience to meet each employee's needs, allowing them to access the information they need to do their job. With Encode's browser-independent functionality, you can customize the layout of your screen, giving you instant access to the exact information you need to do your job effectively. That means no more manually searching for information. Everything you need is delivered directly to your fingertips. And since Encode is compatible with any mobile device, you'll have access no matter if you're in the office or on the go. At Tyler, we offer software that is always evolving without ever becoming obsolete. And when you partner with Tyler, you'll have access to the most recent technology without having to pay for a single software update ever again, thanks to our evergreen philosophy. And with our 98% client retention rate, you can see that we partner with our clients for the long haul. Trusted by more than 1,500 cities, counties, districts, and other local government departments throughout the country, Tyler Technologies Encode software is designed to move your city forward with trusted, scalable, and effective solutions.
So one of the things that the city currently struggles with is, one, a very outdated finance and payroll system that doesn't have a lot of functionality, but also a lot of completely separate and disjointed programs to handle any number of tasks. Like we have a small program that's supposed to handle our fixed asset tracking, which doesn't work very well and doesn't talk directly to our finance system. The idea of an ERP solution is that you really have one solution and all those different modules talk to each other. And the city recently invested in a solution for its permitting software, I don't know, within the last couple of years, I guess. And our recommendation at this time would not be moving forward with Encode's solution for that, but to focus on the areas where we feel like we need the most help, which is the finance and accounting system, our personnel and payroll, and those type of things. Now, the proposal that we have before you also includes a purchasing module that would allow a tie-in. Currently, the city doesn't use purchase orders and things like that, which is something our auditor is recommending that we do. It would include incorporating a fixed asset module, business license module, cashiering module that would be used for payments over the counter online, and also an interface with our new NeoGov human resources software. And then another key portion of this package would be an employee self-service module. So any payroll questions that you have, if you need to change your address, or a lot of simple things like that, you don't have to come in and talk to the payroll clerk to do that. You're able to do that online at your convenience. I'm estimating that the 2 employees in the finance department, not looking at my time specifically, but would save between 30 and 40% of each of their times by eliminating redundant processes with the system and freeing up their time to work on other projects and city priorities. This would allow an unlimited number of users of the system. Currently, we have access for what we pay for our finance system 4 users. Myself and the other 2 finance department employees and our engineering technician have access. Our department heads or city manager do not have direct access to any financial data in our system, which is very difficult to be able to operate your department with that sort of lack of information. And so we went through a process. We've had a number of different demonstrations. City staff is really excited about how this would move the city forward, provide more information both internally as well as to the public, and allow us to be more efficient in those sort of redundant administrative tasks that modern software doesn't require us to do anymore, and allow us to focus on more important priorities and uses of our time. So Tyler Technologies is what I would certainly consider the large leader in this type of product. They focus only on local government as their clients. They were the winning bidder through the TIPS procurement program, which we also utilize for our enterprise fleet management system. And as part of that, they offer a 10% discount to TIPS members. And so we recommend moving forward with the allowance in the city purchasing policy to work directly with Tyler Technologies in this solution. So Chief White talked earlier about sort of our limited IT support here. They do offer a cloud-based hosting solution, so there would be no need for us expanding our server storage capability and other infrastructure to accommodate this. It would be a completely hosted solution. And so the implementation costs be about $60,000 up front, and then an annual maintenance fee of just over $26,000 moving forward. This is really only about $5,000 more than what we're paying for the solution that we have now, which provides very little functionality. And this would be an initial 5-year term of the contract. The only real negative from our perspective is the implementation time is quite lengthy. Usually runs between 9 and 12 months to fully implement the system, because you have to build out chart of accounts, and they actually, there will be some significant benefit for going through the process, because they will work with us on our current administrative processes for, say, the purchasing module, and how those steps that we use now go through the process, provide recommendations, and take the system to mirror that process or improve upon it. And so this will not be, the amounts that we're talking about will not be paid in the current fiscal year. I estimate probably about half of these amounts will be paid in the current fiscal year, and the remainder would be in the following fiscal year. So with that, that's kind of a quick overview. I could go into a lot more detail about the struggles that we have with our current system. Really feel like it's critical that we take a step forward in this area. It's going to help the information that's accessible to the council, to all of us, and to the public.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flora. Councilmember Overton.
So at this time, when our department heads are doing their budgets, they have to go to the finance department and get their figures. And with this system, they would not have to. They'd have access to go in and look at their costs and revenues and know how to budget without bothering our, because I can see that can be a problem with the finance department, with everybody at budget time, each department head going in and having to get their information separately on top of, so this system would allow them to look at it and not have to do that process?
Absolutely. They could look at it every day. They could look at it at home or here at work. And one of the other problems with the system, they can come to me or to one of the finance department staff and ask for a report at any time they want. And obviously, we're happy to provide that to them. But because of access to the system, a payment, an invoice that's done by the police department, they have a paper invoice, which they write the account code on, and they bring it over to Alona, and she comes and checks with me that the account code's correct, and she enters it into the system. And it takes a while for that process. The way it should work is one of Chief White's staffs should be entering that into the finance system directly, and then it'll come to us to verify. And so there's just a real lag, even in the data that we can provide. It's out of date by the time I can print a report almost, because it takes so long to go through that process.
So my question here is, because I'm real picky about the accounting part of this, that you're saying they enter it, but they're not actually entering it into the system itself. It has to go someplace to be verified, because only certain people should be able to change anything at the counting level, and it should not be any staff member. It has to be somebody in the accounting department.
Well, yeah, they have the ability to enter it into the system, but it's not posted into the general ledger until it's approved by finance department.
Because I was just like, I don't want anybody to get in there and be able to mess with somebody except for the finance department. There are some things that have to be secured, and that's one of them that I would not want anybody to be able to per se, change anything.
Yeah, well, you can provide a different level of access for any employee in different organizations.
Councilmember Kramer?
Yeah, Mr. Flora, I like the system. It sounds like it's going to be a great system. I do have a question. You said about 60,000. I think I came up with about 81,000, including the travel time for.
Yeah, you're correct. I was referring to the 50.
And you're saying that's spread over 2 different budget periods?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, we haven't gotten a firm. They don't give us a firm implementation schedule until they have an executed contract. But you know, that was something that we didn't really like, and we negotiated with them to delay starting the maintenance fee, which is a monthly amount. But those, you know, that 9 to 12 months, I mean, we're already, you know, by the time we start, we'll probably have half of the fiscal year left. And so that isn't going to be an upfront payment. It's based on phases in the implementation schedule. And so
they're going to come here to train our people, or
yep.
Train, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do we have, I think we do have something in the budget this year for.
Yeah, right now we had 60,000 was budgeted for implementation, and 30,000 for the maintenance fee. So certainly feel comfortable based on the timeline that would be sufficient for this.
And then that does bring up the other question, the maintenance fee of $26,466. There's a 5-year contract. Is that a locked-in price for 5 years, or I thought I read somewhere in there about an initial period, and I was confused whether that was the first year or the first 5 years.
So that's a price for 5 years.
Okay, so we can count on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Harris? So just a couple of things. The initial impact of the implementation is built into the cost as a prospect, but if there is a longer than anticipated transition from our existing platforms in the data transfer, would there be an additional cost associated to that?
Well, it's based on completion of the phases. So, I mean, the potential for costs would be that the way they have their pricing structure, the implementation cost is much less than a lot of other solutions, because they work some of that cost into the annual maintenance fee. But and so normally they start the annual maintenance fee payment upon execution of the contract, and we're like, well, there's no incentive for you to finish on time. You won't give us a firm schedule, and then we have to pay up front or beginning, you know, straight out of the gate on the maintenance. So where's your incentive to finish the project on time? You know, we want to get it done as soon as possible. So they agreed to delay that until the 3rd phase of the project out of, I think, 5 phases. And so, you know, it's not just based on the timeline, because it's based on the phases, but if those second couple of phases ended up slowing down and we were paying some at that point, even though we weren't using the solution, that would be kind of the financial negative to the schedule dragging on from my perspective. But well, it's, you know, we verified that they've completed, you know, phase 1, and then there's a progress payment for that type of thing. It's not based specifically on a timeline.
As long as it takes to complete phases. Okay. And then the other question I have is just kind of general question. Obviously, yourself and Chief White are quite comprehensive when it comes to tech. And I'm just going to just throw it out there as a question. There's a lot of changes we're making right now, which I think are fantastic and absolutely necessary, just like this. Do you feel like in any way we're going to be overwhelming our staff with the volume of changes in such a short period of time?
Well, that's definitely a concern that we've talked about. And, there's some dreams that we would like to bring forward on implementing other solutions that we're holding back because of that very reason.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
But, this is just such a critical issue for so many aspects of the organization. I mean, not only just saving time for certain staff, but also access to information. I mean,
right.
It's mind-boggling to think that the organization has ran for so long with
antiquated
a lack
software.
of information.
Well, and while I totally understand the function and form of the concept, and I think it's fantastic, I guess what I'm wondering more in detail is if we're taking steps to ready the potential end users for this product so that they, when it does unfold, they're quite prepared. So I mean, obviously there's an implementation phase, but during the implementation phase, I assume there's going to be an associated training session with the people that are involved in the operation of the software to make sure that they're quite versed in it. I mean, an experience that I've had many times is that when you unveil a new program, especially a software program this comprehensive, you may run into some big bumps in the road. Not everybody has the same aptitude when it comes to tech. Some people are very adaptive and some people are not, so it may be a kind of a hit and miss scenario. And I just caution you on that because of my own experiences with this. It is difficult.
I agree with you 100%. I've been through a few rocky software implementations and preparing as much as you can up front for that. I mean, that's why you see, such a relative to the other costs. I mean, that travel cost there, the $20,000. I mean, that's because they're going to be on site training us. And
right here, right here, yeah.
And so that's the value that we're putting on that.
So the $20,000 is not just data transfer from existing platforms, but that's also including on-hand training for our staff. Well, I understand it's travel, but I assume there's going to be, they're traveling here not only to perform training, but they're also traveling here for the transitional phase, the implementation.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff can be done remotely, but, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, it's difficult to really walk through our purchasing process, over the phone in Texas. So,
thank you, sir.
Councilmember Bennett.
I would, you note in the staff report where it would save the finance department and staff time, but I can see going across over to the police department, saving time. You use the example of coding things when they come in. If I was out doing a background and I had my lodging and food and everything, I'd turn into Lieutenant Selly and he'd have to sit there and code each one and then walk it over to finance and everything. And what's worse, in his absence, I was the one that did it. And it's time consuming. So it's not just your staff, but across the way also. I like the idea that department heads, if I understood correctly, can access this.
Yeah, or anyone else that the department head wants to authorize to look at financial data.
Which brings your department heads up to speed on what's going on where, and increases the communication and dialogue between different areas within the city. I think it's a win-win situation. I'm not a tech kind of guy, but I do know we were at maybe the end of the dark ages, but we were way out of time on it. I think it's a good deal. And what you put in here, anyway, it meets our strategic plan and goals and citywide. not just finance department, but citywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Overton?
I have one more question. So when we start making our annual payment for the software, you were saying that we are gonna, so before it's totally implemented, we're gonna be paying a full amount of fees, or are they going to be, if we're at stage, say 3, why would we pay the full amount for the monthly service fee? I mean, why would we not just be paying a portion? Because we're only using a portion, obviously, we shouldn't be paying for a full portion of that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's why we negotiated that far, because, you know, the pricing structure that they have set up is that they keep the implementation costs, that section of it, down by charging that from the beginning. And we also, you know, pushed back on that, saying, you know, it doesn't make sense. And so they basically cut half of that out. Still,
because no offense, I've had software updates in corporations I worked at, and we never paid a monthly fee until it was fully operational, because you're not really paying, you know, you're paying for operation that you're not using. So, but I mean, if it's cost, I mean, I'm going to leave it that you've negotiated out something really good for us, and I just had to kind of question that as far as paying for something that we don't have full use for. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, it gives us some confidence that you know, it is probably the most widely used. I mean, there's a number of different levels. The solution we're looking at is more for small governments. There's another solution like I used when I was in Mendocino. It's the same company, but has even more functionality than what this does. But, you know, it's familiar with the product and the company for sure.
Councilmember Kramer.
Just a follow-up and kind of a segue from Councilwoman Member Overton's questions, and I'm kind of a penny pincher. Would that 5-year contract, why would it not begin until the 5 years that lock in that maintenance fee? Would it not start when the system is fully functional?
That's the way they've created their pricing structure.
And there's no negotiation in that?
The negotiation was that they delayed it for about half the process. Yeah.
So basically, we have a contract for 4 years that locked into that price for the full operation of the system.
Yeah.
So my first question was the licenses. I'm glad to know that it's unlimited. That way, as we grow as an agency, we can start adding more and more people to it. And I'm taking it from what I've read and from what you've identified that there can be read-only access and then write access and stuff like that, which I love the idea of liberating our finance software so everyone has access to it rather than you being the pipeline that everyone has to go through in order to access even the simplest of information. And so I think I want to give you kudos for not trying to hold on to information that you're the primary recipient of. You're actually allowing everyone to have that same access, and I really appreciate that. It talked about data management, but obviously the video was simplifying as much as possible, but then it talked directly about just exporting it to like Excel. Is it possible, because I'm reading here the forms and reports validation, they're standard forms and reports. Is there the potential to create our own forms and our own reports within the software, and how strong is that ability in the software? Because when it's made for all cities, we're not, no city is all cities, as each city has its own ways of processing information and gathering information and pulling information out. And so will it be possible to make our own forms and our own queries and our own reports in order to obtain the exact information that we're looking for rather than going through a process that gives us partial information?
Yeah, I mean, certainly to some extent. I mean, you know, we've had a discussion before about like OpenGov and some of the solutions out there that provide are really designed for that transparency piece. And so there's a number of, you know, automatic reports. If the city manager wants to have a monthly expenditure report for each of the departments, we could build that specific report and set it up that it would email it to them, you know, the first day of the month or whenever we wanted. So it's not at the level of some of those other solutions you've seen out there, which are built specifically for that piece, but it definitely provides a lot of what we're looking for. I mean, you know, I didn't even realize that there was a financial system out there that basically produces its budget reports in Microsoft Word. That's what we're working with now, so.
And it's not supposed to work that way.
That's the cut and paste method.
That's the kind of stuff that you can change without anybody knowing that you did it.
Yeah, well, it's just requires a lot of effort because it has to get into Excel because you can't check your numbers when you're using Microsoft Word.
No, we learned that already. I think this is great. I think this is another tool to make us more efficient and be able to do more. I know we've talked about having our finance department trying to going after the like TOT taxes that we're not collecting. How do we get more time for staff to be able to access those issues that we're not mitigating? And the more we become a better, efficient, more efficient team, I think the more we can tackle some of those issues that we've not been able to tackle. I think that some of the upfront cost I'm not too worried about because they're grabbing our data and then transferring it into the new system. And so we're asking them to do some work up front before we start using the software because they're translating everything over. And please correct me if I'm incorrect with what from what I've read. And to have that historical data still preserved within the new system, a lot of times you upgrade the software, you have to almost use two software, one for historical stuff and then one where you're starting from scratch with the new software. And so to have all of that mixed in one, I think is going to be valuable for us to be able to keep going and move forward where we can look at the whole thing on one software. And also, I think you're correct that for staff, sometimes change can be too quick, but at the same time, I know that I've worked with people going from a DOS-based software to a very high-end Windows software. If they were able to make the software work in DOS, they have that knowledge, that basic knowledge and concept, and it's just learning where things are and things move because new software, you have to find out where it is. But I think the key understanding of it is going to be there. It's functioning right now as we speak. It's just a learning curve and a learning process, and I think time is going to be what heals that that process. So I'm excited about this just because it does so many things for us to be able to move forward, be faster, more efficient, more transparent, and more precise. So I think everything's great.
Public.
Open it up if the public wishes to speak on this or ask any questions. Welcome back.
Having done a financial software upgrade, I just have a couple of questions. I'm assuming when you say access that is various levels of access depending on who it is and what they have access to. And then I'm assuming you're also, from what I'm hearing, you're looking at trying to use the software as it's coming so that the upgrades that come forward, you haven't modified their program to make the upgrades move quickly. And yeah, okay. The back side is easy, the front side is not. Okay, and then also I heard that it looks like there are a variety of modules that you're going to be able to add in as we grow with this program. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, if I could, Mayor Sabatier, I didn't mention that, but you know, they do have the permitting and some land management modules and other stuff like you know, code enforcement and building and planning solutions. And we could add those in at a later time. And I think that should be our goal to do so because it's better to have all that information in one system. That's why we focused on finding a solution that has that capability rather than all the segmented stuff. But they do have a solution that is, you know, it's definitely not ideal, but it's working for them now. And I think there's more bang for our buck by focusing on this one. And then as we have available funds and staff resources, hopefully we can roll out the rest.
Thank you guys for your hard work.
Thank you very much. And please don't be sorry when you come to the podium. Councilmember Overton.
Yeah. One of the things I think should be our goal is integrating all of these systems into this one. I don't think it should be something that we think, oh, maybe in the future. I think it is something that should be a part of our goal when we set our goals, that we need to be setting money aside to actually make that happen. So I think during our budget things, we really need to talk about that because I think it is absolutely crazy that our systems are the way they are. And I think it's important in order for us to function like we should really be functioning, that these systems are integrated into. So I think it should be a priority of ours in one of our goals when we set those, this next year. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. That's my opinion, that I don't think this is something that we should say someday we're going to do. I think this is something that we should say we need to do this, and what's the process of us doing which stages that we do this in, and start setting money aside for it.
We're happy to hear you say that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take action on this item if we can.
He wants to go home.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this? Let's go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we
Let's
brought
go.
it back.
Just wanted to make sure.
I'd like to approve the agreement with Tyler Technologies and authorize the city manager to execute said agreement for Encode 10 software and related services.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Councilmember Kramer. Can I please get a roll call? Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Bennett?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Sabatier?
Aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 17, discussion and consideration of agreement with the County of Lake for collection of special taxes, assessments, fees, charges, and abatements. Mr. Flora.
Mayor Sabatier, members of the council. So the auditor controller in each county has the authority to place direct charges on the property tax roll. And every year the auditor initiates a process in which other taxing entities, the county, the cities, special districts such as the fire district or cemetery districts, submit taxes, fees, and/or assessments to the county, and they're placed as a direct charge on the property tax roll. And as your council, I'm sure, is aware, it's a little more serious step over a lien, in that you don't necessarily have to wait until there's a turnover of the property to be able to collect. That's something that goes on directly on the property tax roll, and can initiate a default if not paid. So the city uses this process primarily for code enforcement, actions such as abatement liens and recovery of administrative penalties. And so the auditor provides this service for all the taxing entities around the county, is the only authority really to do so. And they have expressed a desire to create a standardized agreement between the county and each entity that sort of outlines the process for submitting these items. And then per council direction, staff have reviewed and provided recommendations for changes to that agreement to make it more consistent with the city's needs. And I also wanted to add as well that the agreement that was revised by our city attorney has been reviewed by City of Lakeport staff, and they're in concurrence with the agreement as revised. We have submitted the revised agreement to the county. We have not heard back from them on whether they're in agreement with the recommended changes, but we felt it appropriate to bring it back to the council for action.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flora. Any questions from the council for our staff? Councilmember Kramer?
For Mr. Jones, you, I'm assuming, went through this and did the changes. Are you
I did, yes.
comfortable with the changes you made?
I am, and in fact, I had Mr. Flora brought up talking to Lakeport. I had talked to their city attorney, and we kind of collaborate on some of these. So this, I believe, makes it a, I would say, a more fair agreement and an appropriate. We need to work together with the county. Not trying to do. I just think this is the best way to do business with them.
Okay, thank you.
So I had number one. I found a on item number 3. Is there a letter for that? No, it's just number 3 at the end on the last sentence. It says requested by district. If we can make sure and turn that to city.
You bet.
Since there's a definition for district and we don't fit that definition. But I know that we've gone through a couple of situations when submitting fees or assessments to the county, where I've been told by some of our staff members that, for instance, we just had a tax auction in June. We still had not received a full list of what our properties were that were sold, so we weren't we don't have the knowledge of what fees should have been collected. I know that I contacted the gentleman at the head of the tax collector's office in the county. He gave me some information about future tax auctions with specifics, but was not able to provide me with specifics yet at this as of this moment of which properties of the city of Clearlake were sold at the auction. And I'm wondering if we can implement something in there that upon, because I see number 2 here, it says when county is to collect, and it's kind of weird to me, to collect city's special taxes, but when I keep reading, it's really when we submit those taxes and fees to the county. So when county is to collect from the city's special, like something of that, because it sounds almost like they're collecting the payment of the assessments or from those that from the properties that have been assessed. So I'm wondering if maybe that might need some word change to, because I'd also like to see an addition when the county collects the special taxes, fees, and assessments based on sale of house or fine being paid or taxes, the balance being paid up for the year, that we are notified of this so that we can make sure to collect, and then we're both on the same we're on the same page as far as what's owed, what's not owed, what property is where with the fees, because right now I've been dealing with a specific property. I'm sure Mr. Folsom knows exactly which one I'm talking about, where there's still some infighting going on between whether there's still an assessment on that property or not, and who owns the assessment. Is it the prior owner of the property or the current? And there's been that lack of communication from my perspective, between the county and the city, for us to be in the know, because we don't control what happens with taxes once it's been placed at the county level. And so I'm wondering if we can implement some kind of insurance that we will receive all the information when money that is supposed to be paid back to us, that we get a list of where we can rebalance it on our sheets as well. I don't know.
Well, just initial, I think the first, the takeaway is that the communication with the county needs to improve, and I think it is improving. I don't know that situation is exactly what we're talking about here. We got a little bit grouped in with special districts, with the fire districts and other that really do have. They get their funding by getting put on the property tax rolls. We really don't, and so they want to make sure that this type of an agreement is in place with them. So I think what we can do with your situation, Mayor, is maybe open that line of communication with them and create a separate agreement, a separate situation where they are making sure we're made aware of tax sales and do we have liens on those properties, that kind of thing. Because I don't know that that's exactly what we're talking about in this particular agreement. Maybe the finance director has a different idea, but that would be my thought, is let this agreement stand on itself, open the lines of communication with the county, and continue to try to discuss that particular issue with them.
No, I would agree.
We're going to count on you.
You're our
He'll be on the other side.
You're on it now. Are you ready for a motion?
Let me open this up for the public. Anybody wish to speak on this item? I guess not. I will bring it back for further deliberation or action. If we take action, do we need to say the district change, or that's just
Yes.
Okay.
You mean on the agreement, approve the agreement with the changes?
Yeah.
With the County of Lake for collection of special taxes, assessments, fees, changes, and abatements as presented, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Overton and a second by Councilmember Bennett. If I can please get a roll call.
Councilmember, oops.
It's just an agreement. We can do all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Sorry to cut you off, Madam Clerk. I took away your spotlight. Mr. Folsom, your report, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. First of all, I know it's very obvious once you walk out the door, but we are under an air quality alert. We've been notified that the air is unhealthy right now, and that's due to the campfire in Butte County. Also wanted to note that the flag in front of City Hall is currently at half-mast. That'll be through Saturday, November 10th, to honor the victims of the shooting incident in Thousand Oaks. We do have our flag lowering ceremony on Tuesday, November 13th, at 11 a.m. at Austin Park. So please, invite everybody to come on out for that. My November city manager report is on our website. And just finally, I want to congratulate Councilmember Kramer and Planning Commissioner Dirk Slotin on their election to the City Council.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Overton.
So I went to the Continuum of Care meeting, and before that meeting, we had the pit count meeting, where we'll be doing our count for our homeless at the end of January. There is 10-day span there that we can pick a day and basically do our count. We have one day, which I never did figure that one out. It's too hard to do, but we're starting to learn from how other people do it, so we're definitely going to be on a little bit better count this year because we're really trying to get our count out because the counties and the cities miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because our count is low. So, and we know that we have a lot of homeless, that they're just not getting counted. So we're trying to figure out a better way to make sure, such as using maybe other means instead of just standing around trying to get people to come out and check themselves and get a meal. The marketing committee I went to, I always look forward to that, and we're doing a lot of marketing with our city. I like the idea we're changing some of the views that we're putting in our magazines. I like that, and hopefully next year's our magazine display will be much, much better with the vision of our mayor and his wonderful pictures, and our administrator with our manager, city manager with his wonderful pictures. You guys bring out some awesome pictures, so I do appreciate that. I loved our Halloween. I was lucky enough because we had the marketing committee here. But what was really good was in that morning is I kind of got boofed because they kept coming and telling me Greg was out there in our facility, and it was actually Ellen who was pretending to be Greg. So that was really kind of a good Halloween trick because I come out looking for our city manager, and it was our assistant. So he did play a good trick where I probably was the only one that really got the boof of it, but it was great. We have Veterans Day on Monday, so please honor our veterans. That's why I was glad we're kind of, in a way, we've had a lot of veterans that have been lost, and so I want to show our appreciation to all that they do. And then I want to announce that I'm going to be doing the Thanksgiving dinner this year again on Thanksgiving Day at our community center. So anybody that would like to volunteer, come down. It's just a community dinner for anybody that wants to come. Bring your families, and the food is all free. But if you want to donate some food, that's great. We'll take it, and you can. And so that'll be on 22nd on Thanksgiving Day. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for doing that at Thanksgiving. That's awesome. Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you. I would also like to congratulate Councilman Kramer and Councilman-elect Slotin for their election, and for all parties involved running a very nice and clean campaign. It wasn't that way throughout the county.
Some people should take note.
Congratulations. I would like to commend Mr. Flora for the budget that you put out, the format for fiscal year 2018-2019. Probably the best that I've ever seen since I've worked for city government and in the Bay Area and here. Well done. Well done. This past week, myself, Ed Roby, and Brock Falkenberg from the PEG board went to the Board of Supervisors meeting and gave them a check out of our budget for $21,000 for the purpose of upgrading the Board of Supervisor chamber and on-location audio-visual equipment so that they will have equipment somewhat similar to what we have here. The next project is to bring Lakeport up to speed, which I'm sure they're not behind, but they need a little boot.
Did they have any videoing?
Pardon?
They don't have any videoing at all
No,
of their
they,
meetings.
I don't know what they do. I don't think they do anything, but we have, yes, from John over there, that's about what they have. But they need to be brought into it, and we have budgeted the amount of money for them. Today I was a second victim. Russ Kramer was the first for the taping of the Lake County Oral History. And Beth did the interviews. And so that should be edited and yours and mine out hopefully sometime in the near future. That was about an hour. It'll be cut down to probably 5 minutes. And that's about all I have.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kramer.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for congratulations in reference to our running a clean and positive campaign. Pretty hard when all three of us are Rotarians and good friends. Otherwise, but I do thank you for that. I was asked by Lisa Bates Davies, yeah, any rate, if I would be on the board of a new 501c3 that's being formed in conjunction with Lake Transit. It'll be called Lake Links, and it'll be a fundraising arm of it. So I will be on that board, and I'll tell you more about it when I learn more about it. So that was the second thing. Oh, and then the third, I was coming out of my house the other day and noticed a group of people across the street along the creek, obviously dragging stuff out of the creek, which had been a concern of mine because of we had a pretty good sized flood there 3 or 4 years ago because the creek hadn't been cleaned. So I walked over, and a fellow came over, and I said, "What are you guys up to?" And he told me, he said, "Oh, well, we're cleaning the creeks out." I said, "Well, who are you?" And he said, "Well, we're with the Northern California Indian Development Council." Is that right? Yeah. And apparently our Public Works had found them, and they have a grant. There was, I think, 18 of them in the crew. And they're being supervised by Mike Baker, so I wanted to give a kudos to Mike Baker for, I think he's doing a great job with them. And I'd love to see that creek clean. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make sure and not forget Vice Mayor Harris this time.
He's on vacation. He doesn't have anything.
I appreciate that. I don't have a lot because I was... Hey. I don't have a lot because I was gone. So what I would say, though, is that while I was trying to enjoy my time away, obviously somebody decided to come through our city and do some pretty negative things in our community. And I appreciate the officers involved in apprehending the people that were involved in that thing. And obviously stuff like that can't be tolerated in our community, so I very much appreciate that steps taken there. And I'm going to go and join in with everybody else in congratulating our two new, well, you're officially here for the 4 years, and also for Dirk Slutin for his new position on the council. And that's all I have for you, bud. That's all.
Glad I didn't forget you this time. Yeah, my report's small as well. Did the marketing committee meeting. Oh, wait, there was something before. What did we do, Greg, on the Tuesday before the marketing committee? We did, oh, animal control. That's right. We had an animal control meeting. We talked about the upgrades to the facility that we have currently. Right off of Old Highway 53 on the edge of the airport property. There's some good changes that are being looked at. There was actually some unique offerings that we did not expect to be offered to upgrade the facility as well that we're going to look into to see if that's possible. As we saw earlier, we had a presentation on the new software. I really like where we're going right now with our animal control. We get weekly reports as a council as well, and I'm seeing our numbers increasing in the number of the amount of activity that our animal control is able to do in our community, the amount of animals not only are we taking in, but amount of animals that we're redeeming, rescuing, and adopting out to the community as well. So I appreciate the increases and the efforts being made for that. Then we had the marketing committee right before Halloween, which was pretty much just reviewing one item, which I will not give too much information about because once we're complete, we're looking at renewing the image of more of a Clearlake, and we're going to see that effect when that item is completed, and I'm excited about it. And City Halloween, we already thanked all of our volunteers. I want to thank them all again. We packed City Hall with, I don't know, 500, 700. I mean, there was a large amount of families and kids walking through. I don't even know how many we had.
We probably had between 350 and 400 people come through.
Because not all of them asked for bags.
Right, we gave away almost 350 bags alone.
Parents
and
everything, you can
yeah.
550 to 600.
Double.
And not just to single someone out, but I just really want to say I appreciate Cecil's Pizza for the amount of pizza that they were bringing back and forth. And unfortunately, by the time they got here with more pizza, we needed more already. It was going by real fast, thanks to Greg.
Greg, you just gotta quit eating that. Wife doesn't come to the events because he eats.
Did she ever feed you at all?
Later that night was also trunk or treat, and I was not aware until I saw pictures that our chief of police had a car all decked out at the trunk or treat. So I want to share my appreciation of you being a part of our community, really coming in and just jumping in with both feet. Every event, every fundraiser that I go to, you seem to be there as well, and I really appreciate the way that you're blending into our community and the efforts that you're putting in. So thank you so much for doing so. But that event was successful. I was told there was about I don't know, 500 to 800 people that went through. The haunted house was set up by Clearlake students of the it's part of the Seroptimus Club, but for high school version. I forget, the S Club, I think is what they're called. So the S Club crew went ahead and set up a haunted house. Everything seemed to go well, so thank you to all the volunteers that made that happen. Always love seeing activity in our community. And I think that's all that I have as far as meetings. We have a redo to my left.
Just, well, things have been, my mind's been other places, but I did want to give an update on, we did finally get the portable restrooms in. They're at the Community Senior Center. And if anybody would like a tour, some of you already had the tour, but if anybody would like one, I can show you through it. I have the keys to everything.
I've never heard of a tour of a portable.
Hey, this one,
one
is first class.
It really is first class. You gotta see it. And Dave has got all that electrical.
And Dave Rogers, really kudos to him as well. The guy's put in,
special for him.
I'd say hundreds of hours getting the wire pulled, and has now got the wire over to the edge of where we want it to be. And he deserves a lot of credit from us. I think some sort of a certificate of appreciation would be in order.
Yeah, between Dave Rogers and Mike Dean and Lower Lake Community Action Committee, I think we definitely appreciate the efforts being made to support our senior community center.
Absolutely, Dave though especially has gone above and beyond.
I mean, he's there before I get there, and he's there all day long. I mean, he has really just amazes me of what, first off, his knowledge of all of that. I mean, he has installed, if you really go over and look at it and see everything that he's installed, you'd be amazed that somebody even can do that. So, and he's spent,
and that it works.
Spent hundreds of hours over there. Yeah, he's spent so many hours over there, I can't believe it. So, and all volunteer. So, I mean, that was a dedicated community person.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of other folks that have pitched in at various places along, and it's definitely been a community effort, which is great to see. It's Lake County strong.
All right. And last but not least, definitely congratulations not only to Russ Kramer and Dirk Sluten for winning for the City Council for Clearlake starting next year, but to all the winners and all who ran for public office. I know that I've been very proud of the last 4 years of serving the community of Clearlake here, and it's definitely a rewarding place to be. And so no further reports. Any